You're listening to Big World Network.
Urban Punk, Episode 1, written by Riley Amos Westbrook and Sarah Lynn Westbrook, read by Michael James Thompson. Sarah stretched as she sat up from the bed, slowly scratching an itch on her scalp. She threw her feet to the floor, wiggling her toes on the hardwood beneath them. Reaching out, she grabbed her glasses from the nightstand. The petite woman made her way to the kitchen, hitting the button on her coffee maker as she passed into the bathroom. She removed her glasses and squinted in the mirror, rubbing sleep from her eyes. A flash of irritation passed through her at the sight that stared back. Her long blonde hair was frizzy and wild, and she felt a familiar disdain for her appearance. "I should just shave my head," she said with a hint of annoyance to her reflection in the mirror before walking to the tub. She pulled back the shower curtain and climbed in, leaving the curtain open. She hated the claustrophobic feelings the plastic and fabric curtains evoked in her. The hot humid air never failed to make her uncomfortable. Sarah suffered through the shower, feeling the water thundering against her skin. She hated the moving wetness and the way the water tickled off her as it dripped from her body. She hurried through the motions, wanting to escape the torture as fast as possible. Blindly, she reached for a towel, grabbing one from the towel rack, and dried her face and body. She strode naked through the apartment, heading for her bedroom. Looking through her clothes, she pulled a few outfits out, laying them on her bed to see how they went together before choosing the one she liked most. Camouflage jeggings paired with a dark green shirt and a black leather trench coat. Sarah carefully laced up her tall combat boots, tying them tight before going back into the bathroom to put on a light touch of eyeshadow and mascara. She went back into the kitchen, grabbing a large travel mug and pouring the entire pot of coffee into it, and adding liberal amounts of non-dairy creamer and sugar before heading out the door. She stopped herself as she remembered she had forgotten something. Sarah ran back into her room, pulling open the top drawer of her dresser, looking down on an assorted collection of unused sex toys. She reached in, pulling out a large pink dong and stuffed it into her purse. The petite woman closed the drawer, then exited her apartment. The sun blazed in her eyes, blinding her as she stepped from her building. She glared at the ball of fire in the sky that seemed to want to roast her like a peanut. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a pair of clip-on sunglasses and slapping them over the frames of her glasses. Sarah yawned as she walked back down the street, drinking her coffee and spending time with her own thoughts. Her concentration was broken as she passed a group of kids in the park. They were running around playing and being their normal noisome selves. Sarah glanced at them, thankful she was not burdened with any of these little monsters. Another group of kids approached her as they walked down the sidewalk, a few licking ice cream cones. The kids didn't open a hole for their elder to pass through, but instead surrounded Sarah, invading her personal space. In anger, she lashed out, tripping one of the kids, causing him to drop his ice cream. She didn't even have to break stride and continued onward without bothering to apologize or look back, the protests of the children like music to her ears. A rare smile spread across her face as she listened to them cussing her out, and she continued walking to her destination. She entered the office building her employer Ross owned and headed to a private elevator off to the side. The lift shot up to the top floor, and she stepped out into a wide-open room. Fossils lined the walls, prominently displayed with a plaque saying what they were and where they came from. The very first time Sarah had entered this room, she had been overwhelmed by the scale and scope of what seemed an endless variety. Some of these fossils dated back millions of years, and if the young woman had any weakness, it was history. She crossed into the wide-open space Ross kept as his office, walking around the desk to stare down over his shoulder. Numbers covered the page he examined meticulously. He hadn't even recognized her presence yet. His blonde hair was slicked back solid with gel. Sarah was tempted to see if she could knock on it like wood. He was wearing a sky-blue shirt, a deep blue and green bow tie finishing his outfit. A beautiful patterned silk coat was set on a hanger in the corner of the room. He flipped the page he was looking at, made a notation in the margins, and finally deigned to notice his employee. "You're late," he said, his eyes hard. "Why are you late?" "I told you when I agreed to work for you, sometimes noon is too early," Sarah said, stepping around to take a seat in one of the chairs in front of the desk. She put her black-heeled boots up on the mahogany while Ross glared at her. "So what am I doing today?" she asked, taking a brief swig from her coffee. "Today you're learning manners," Ross said, going back to the page before him. "Today you meet who I choose to be your partner." I don't work with a partner, Sara said coolly, glaring at her boss from over the top of her boots. They get in the way. Exactly why you need one. Mr. Smith called. He told me what you did to his son, Harold. Sara got a thoughtful look on her face. Harold, you mean the fop? Fop? Ross asked, a bewildered look on his face. Yeah, the guy who screws old women, looks like a pretty boy, likes to wear lace. A grin lit across her face. The things those old women say to him. How was I to know that his fiancée didn't know? It wasn't your place to interfere. Now his father is threatening to take his accounts away from me. Angry, he looked up from his papers, his piercing blue eyes stabbing into her soul. I don't like to lose revenue. You need to go apologize. I don't care what you do, but you make him happy. Anything sexual is off limits, Sara said, still glaring right back at this dangerous man. I don't care. Just make him happy. Ah, here's your partner. A large, rotund man strode into the room. Ross, long time no see, the man said in a deep baritone voice. Long, thick, coppery hair gathered into a top knot accented his broad shoulders, and a grin that could light a room spread across his face. Then Sara saw something that scared her. Her boss smiled back, a true and genuine smile. Hello, Joey. Long time no see. Far too long, far too long. So, what'd you need my help with? The fat man asked, squeezing himself into the other seat across from the desk. I need your help cooling off a firecracker. I know you used to struggle with anger issues that occasionally caused you to make some regrettable choices. Ross gestured to Sara. She has issues with that. I do not, Sara said coolly, trying to keep a lid on her explosive temper. Ross eyeballed her coolly as Sara tried to keep a blush from her face. She failed, and anger lit a fire in her eyes. She shouted, "Fuck you, you fucking fuck! I'm not a fucking hothead." Joey sighed deeply, turning to her. You show your childness when you cuss. Makes one think you lack intelligence for normal conversations. Sara's green eyes gained a golden hue as her anger flared further. Who the fuck are you to talk to me like that? She demanded, jumping from her seat. As her anger consumed her, she reached into her purse, pulling free the dildo. I knew I brought this thing for a reason. She charged the fat man, who leaned back in the chair, tipping it over. Joey rolled backwards out of the chair, coming to his feet, facing her. Sara continued to charge, and he caught her on the back collar of her leather trench coat, lifting her from the carpeted ground and holding her at arm's reach. The petite woman flailed furiously, trying to hit Joey with the silicone dildo in her hand. Fuck you! Don't you ever call me a child. The dildo whistled past his nose. Calmly, Joey reached out, snatching the floppy pink rubber away from her with his free hand. He tossed it against the wall, then lifted her higher so he could look her in the eye. You better watch who you attack, little woman. Next time I won't be so gentle. As she glared into those sea-blue eyes, Sara felt her resolve melt away. Something about this man and how he was treating her made her want to listen more than fight. With a resigned expression on her face, she meekly said, Okay, I'll calm down. Just put my feet back on the floor. Her boss shook his head in shock. I think she likes you, Ross. And then he looked to her. I honestly don't care what goes on between you two. You need to get a hold on your temper, and this is the first time I've seen you successfully rein it in. He turned to Joey. There must be something about you. She quit trying to shove that dildo up your ass. Normally when she decides that, there's no stopping her. But now you see what I mean, a hothead. More likely to get you in trouble than you are to help her, but someone needs to work with her. You think you'll be able to handle it? Joey chuckled a little as he righted the chair, and they all sat back down. I'm used to it. My sister used to chase me around the house with butcher knives for fun. Ross straightened his tie. Well, let's get down to brass tacks, you two. I need you to keep Sara out of trouble, Joey. I need there to be no complications while we're negotiating with the triads. He turned to Sara, the smile leaving his face. And you will listen to him. You will not start trouble, and stay away from Jimmy Chang. I know you two have a history. That's the last thing we need, for you to start another war with those neo-Nazi lowlifes. Ross sat back, steepling his fingers as he examined his employees. Oh, and if you fuck up, I will have you both killed. I don't care who it is. You will both be punished for it. He dismissed them silently, going back to his numbers and becoming completely absorbed in them. Sara rolled her eyes. She was used to Ross's threats. Joey shook his head, a perplexed expression on his face. He followed her from the room, humming softly to himself as they waited for the elevator. When the doors closed behind them, Sara turned on her new partner, shoving her finger right up under his nose. Let's just get one thing straight. You aren't my boss. If I decide to listen to you, it's because I choose to do so. My advice to you, don't get in my way when I decide I want to hurt someone. So you're telling me not to do my job, Joey asked, eyeing her. You can do your job, but you need to understand that pushing me too far has repercussions.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.